Welcome to Solo, a space where the threads of lived experience, energy, and insight are gently woven into a path of remembering, reconnection, and becoming. I'm Michelle, and in this episode, I want to explore a phrase you've probably heard before, the dark night of the soul. You might have heard teachers like Eckhart Tolle speak about it, or seen it referenced in books and on social media. But what does it actually mean? And how do you know if you're experiencing one? The truth is, the phrase has much older roots than most people realise. It wasn't invented by modern self-help culture. It comes from the 16th century, from a Spanish mystic and poet named St. John of the Cross. For him, the dark night wasn't simply a rough patch of life. He described it as a sacred passage, a time when who you thought you were begins to dissolve so that a deeper truth can emerge. In his poem, The Dark Night, he writes, "On a dark night, kindled in love with yearnings, oh, happy chance. I went forth without being observed, my house being now at rest." His words point to that moment when the house of the old self falls silent and something within us is called out into the unknown. He chose poetry because sometimes only poetry can capture the rawness and the beauty of being completely undone. His verses remind us that this experience is part of a much older lineage of awakening, one that every generation of seekers has walked in their own way. In today's language, dark night of the soul is often used loosely to describe hard times, but at its core, it's a kind of spiritual disorientation, when the things that once felt stable or fulfilling no longer do. It can look like waking up and realising that the career you poured yourself into no longer holds any meaning. Sitting in a relationship and sensing that it doesn't fit who you're becoming anymore. Habits, routines, or communities that once felt comforting now leave you strangely disconnected. Passions and interests that used to energise you suddenly feel flat. And beliefs or values that guided you for years no longer ring true. It can also show up in subtler ways. Maybe friendships that once felt solid begin to fade without conflict. Maybe your body feels restless, as if it's carrying energy that doesn't align with the life you're living. Maybe the things you used to say yes to without hesitation now feel like they're draining you. At first, most people label these seasons as just a slump or a midlife wobble. And while those can be very real experiences, what often sits beneath them is something much deeper. The dark night of the soul isn't just a period of discomfort. It's your soul asking you to pay attention. It's a threshold moment. The way you've measured success, found meaning, or defined yourself no longer feels steady. Not because you failed, and not because you've done something wrong, but because you're being invited into an evolution. It's confronting because it strips away the very identities and attachments that once made you feel safe. But underneath the loss, something more authentic is waiting to emerge. I like to think of it in terms of seasons. Winter doesn't mean something has gone wrong with the earth. It means a cycle is at work. Roots are deepening, old growth is being shed, and something unseen is preparing to come alive. The dark night of the soul works in much the same way. Outwardly, it may feel barren, but inwardly, something sacred is preparing to rise. The temptation in the dark night is to try to fix it, to rush through it, or to get back to who you were. But this isn't a stage that you can hack or bypass. It's not about returning to an old version of yourself. It's about being reshaped into something new. So, how do you walk through it? You start by allowing yourself to move slowly. This isn't a race. Even if your mind wants to push forward, your soul has its own pace. Seek support, whether that's a trusted friend, a skilled therapist, or spiritual mentor. Being witnessed and held in a safe space makes all the difference. You're not meant to carry this passage alone. Stay anchored in small, grounding rituals. Breathwork doesn't need to be elaborate. Even 3 conscious breaths can reorient you to the present. Journaling can give shape to the thoughts and feelings swirling in your mind, making them easy to see and release. A walk in nature reconnects your body to cycles bigger than yourself. Even placing your hand on your heart and whispering, "I am here, I am safe," can be a touchstone. And most of all, reframe the darkness. It isn't punishment, and it isn't proof you failed. It's a passage, a threshold, and a transition. The dark night of the soul, the one mystics wrote about and teachers like Eckhart Tolle still reference, is often the threshold of transformation. It strips away what is false so that what is real can surface. If your walk is through a dark night of the soul right now, please remember, it's not a sign you've failed. It's the dismantling before the remembering, the night before the dawn. This is where the work of sacred remembrance begins. And by that, I don't mean another task or program. Sacred remembrance is simply the practice of noticing the energies at play in your life, the seasons, the patterns, the thresholds, and the remembering that you are more than the roles, the stories, or the identities that are falling away. It's a way of walking through these times with awareness instead of fear. A way of leaning into the wisdom that even in the unraveling, there is purpose. That the night is not endless. That the dawn is already forming, even if you can't see the light yet. And you're not alone. This season has purpose, and what is most sacred in you is finding its way back to the light. Thank you for listening to Soul Loom. If this episode resonated with you, I invite you to follow the podcast and share it with someone who may need these words today. And leaving a review also helps these threads reach more people who are walking their own path of remembrance. You'll find links and resources in the episode notes so you can continue exploring in your own time.